Hi, Jenna Pecor here with Bancroft Realty, and today I'm doing a video about how do you know when it's time to sell your house if you're a senior adult and you've lived in your house for a while and you just maybe the thought has crossed your mind, but you're just not sure. How will you know? What are some signs that you'll be able to see? So this is what I want to talk about today. So first of all, let's talk about the reasons why people stay put in their house longer than they should. Because that's going to give you a good idea of maybe how to overcome some of these things, even if you know that maybe selling is what you really need to do. So first of all, one of the biggest things, our biggest concerns that a lot of senior adults have about their house is its condition and its value. And there are times in real estate where people will overvalue their house and they don't want to be realistic about some of the problems that it has. But when I see for senior adults, it's the opposite. It's that they think their house's condition is way worse than what it is compared to other houses, or that it's really not worth all that much money. And as an example, I went into one listing appointment, and the way that the kids had explained this house to me, it was the foundation was horrendous and nobody was going to buy this house in its current condition and it was awful. I mean, I really expected to go in and see cracks this big in the wall, and I have seen cracks this big in a wall before. And when I walked in, I saw typical foundation issues that all North Texans have. If your house is over a certain years, 5, 10 years old, the chances that you don't have settling cracks in your house is slim to none. If you live in a house that has never experienced settling, you don't have doors that suddenly, that wasn't hard to close yesterday and now all of a sudden it is. These kinds of things are typical. It's because of the type of soil that we build our houses on top of. But these people had really, I don't know what they were comparing it to, but in their minds, nobody was going to buy this house because it was just going to need too much work. And even if it did, let's just assume that the entire house needed foundation work. The house was less than 2,000 square feet. It wasn't large. It was going to take less than about $10,000. It would have taken less than about $10,000 worth of foundation work to do. And they own their house outright. These are things that you can take out of your net proceeds and be able to do the foundation and stuff like that. But they weren't thinking about those things. They just assumed that nobody was going to want it, that it was in really bad shape. And I get that a lot. Another example, I had one house that the mom had taken out all of the HVAC. She did not have any central heat and air. She still had a furnace in her house. The house was very small. She took out um, the HVAC system and just had window units. The house had an addition onto the back that was not permitted. The nothing in the house had been updated, and the house really smelled of dog, like a dog had lived there for a long time and not been taken outside. This house was not in great shape. And the kids were convinced this house was going to go for less than, I think it was like less than $100,000. They had been in talks with an investor, and they were going to give them about $100,000. And I said, you could get $135,000 for this house. And they just thought I was lying. They said, there's no way you were going to get that much. And I said, not only will you get that much, you'll get more. I said, that is being very conservative. I said, I think that it's going to be a multiple offer situation and that you're going to end up walking away with more. And we ended up walking away from that deal with a $175,000 offer. We had 42 offers within, I think it was 72 hours, and got two offers at $175,000, and they were shell shocked. And they were convinced it wasn't going to happen until the day that they got their money and they said, okay, we believe you. Um, so these are all things that we can discuss. You can discuss this with your real estate agent. Um, my biggest thing is protecting the equity of all of our seniors. I believe, and with anyone too, but I firmly believe that seniors are taken advantage of more from investors than any other age group. I think that they believe that their house is not worth that much. And a lot of times too, I mean, consider the fact if you've lived there for 30 years or more and you've lived in a house that you bought for $80,000 and now I'm going to tell you it's worth $250,000 and you're like, there's no way that's possible. And then an investor comes in and says, no, I'll give you $180,000 for the house. And that's a lot of money. That's a huge appreciation in value. That seems like a lot, but it's not everything that you're owed for that house. So that's one of the biggest things that keeps people from selling at this age range is that they just don't think that their house is worth that much or that nobody would want to buy it in its current shape. So talk with your real estate agent. The, Even if you interview a couple real estate agents before you sell to an investor or just don't sell at all. Just talk to a professional that can tell you one way or the other and say, yes, you can get this much money for this. And this is exactly what people are wanting. A lot of times right now, people want fixer uppers. Actually, young couples want fixer uppers that they can go into and put money into and invest in and live in a new house with their new family. So you don't know what other people might want. And so talk to a professional first. Another sign that I think I saw a lot, especially being in assisted living, is the loss of vision. And macular degeneration is a huge thing that happens to seniors when they get into their 80s and 90s. And the loss of sight is probably the most dangerous of all of the afflictions that you might come across. And I mean, obviously, if you have trouble getting around and you're using a walker, people know that you're struggling with your mobility. If your dementia is progressing and you are doing things like waking up in the middle of the night and trying to cook food, this is dangerous as well, but those are things that are more difficult to hide. I found that seniors had more they hid the loss of their vision a lot more from their families. And the thing about being in a house, if you've lived in a house for a long time, you've got that house memorized. If you start to lose your sight, you know how to get around in it for the most part. What you can't do is see your cell phone if you need to call 911, or if you get a new remote control for your TV that you can't see the numbers for. A lot of times you can't even see your television anymore. Because even if it's a huge screen TV, it's macular degeneration messes around with the colors and the way that we see colors in our vision, and it's difficult to read words on a screen. You certainly can't read directions for food, like if you're trying to cook or make something. Um, and so that is something that I think that should be a red flag. If you're losing your vision and it's difficult for you to see, that it might be time for you to sell your house and move in with family and friends or into an assisted living community. Another red flag is if there's parts of your house that you have not been in over a year because it's not safe or you can't physically get there. So let's say that you have a second floor and you can't get up the stairs, or if you can't go into, like if you have maybe a drop down, like your living room is a lower level, you can't get into there because stepping down on those steps without a handicap rail or something is no longer safe. Um, if your carpet is thick and you can't, and it's a trip hazard, or if you have purchased things and you can't put them away because you don't have the physical ability anymore, and now your house has become so full of stuff that it is now a hazard and you can't get around it to get into different rooms of your house. These are all things that are just a good sign that it might be time to sell. And not only that, but I feel like people sometimes can handicapped access their house in ways that are not helpful or that lower the value of their house. One of the biggest complaints that I heard living in assisted living is that, well, my son, put in one of those chair ramp things for the stairs so that I could get up and down, but I still never used it because it took forever. And now you have this permanent attachment to your house that you can't get rid of, and the next person is not going to want that. So sometimes handrails, handicapped rails and things are a good addition. But if you start putting too much handicapped accessible stuff into a house, it can actually be very expensive. You're now dipping into the equity that you could be getting just from selling your house, and it's lowering the value of your house because you're making it to where another family that doesn't need all that stuff and doesn't want it is going to have to go back and change it back. So these are all things that we can discuss, and I would love to talk about these things with you. Put in the comments below, what are some of the other concerns that, or how did you know when it was time for you to sell your own house or it was time to sell mom's house? Um, and if you are the child of an aging parent and you know it's time to sell the house, but it's difficult for mom to get to that conclusion, that can also be challenging. This generation of people, very few of them have ever not been a homeowner. They might not have a dime to their name, but they still own the same house that they've lived in when they were 50 years old. And it might be dilapidated and it might be falling apart around them, but they still have this real estate investment. that they have that they could sell and make a reasonable amount of money. If you have a home that you have paid off, and even if all you get from that home is $100,000 and you're 85 years old, that's $100,000 for the remainder of your life. That is plenty of money to get you through to the next part of your life. That is a lot. And people, you could put it in a savings account that could accrue interest. But instead, what they do is they hold on to that because they don't know what it feels like to not be a homeowner. And that is a mental obstacle that we kind of have to help our loved ones get over, so that they can get that equity. The whole reason for having a home and for being a real estate owner is that you get the equity out of it when it's time to sell. That's the whole reason for, besides having shelter. I mean, but at the end of the day, as an investment, you want that money that you've invested to have grown and appreciated over time so that now you have the ability to fund your retirement in your older age. And just people just hold on to those things too much and don't realize that what you're just doing is taking something from a asset to a liquid asset, and you're putting it into money that you can now use to fund the rest of your life. So put in the comments below, what would you like, not only what were some red flags that showed you that it was time to move, but what would you like for me to see address on this particular channel? How can I address some of the concerns that you're having right now and help you to talk through them with either your loved ones, or maybe you're an older parent that your kids don't want you to sell and you know that it's time to sell, but you need to have that conversation with them. Let's talk through that. If you're in the DFW area and you are looking to list your house, I'd love to talk to you more about that. My cell phone is 214-558-4410. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel. I will have lots of great information for you if this is something that you're going through. And please feel free to comment in the comments below, and let's talk about this more. Have a great day. Bye.